Well, ordinarily, this would be where the music plays, but I guess not today. Hi, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll, and this is the Exam Room Live brought to you by the Physicians Committee. Thank you so very much for joining us for this healthiest half hour anywhere online today. Appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us here on Facebook and on YouTube. Coming up today, how a woman's diet during pregnancy could affect her baby's life expectancy. Detailing a groundbreaking new study for us is Dr. Hana Kahleova. Dr. Kahleova, this is really fascinating research, not something that we've seen a whole lot of to date.
Yeah, I agree. Stay tuned. Thanks for having me,
It,
Chuck.
I appreciate you taking the time to join us. And Dr. Jazz, lifestyle medicine expert, Dr. Jasmol Sardana, also back in the house to take the discussion a step further, talking about how a mother's habits, even before she gets pregnant, can affect her child's health. So, Dr. Jazz, tackling this from both ends today. Appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Chuck. Thank you.
And if you have a question that you would like to ask Dr. Jazz, go ahead and post that in the comments section. Now, we will be opening up the doctor's mailbag in just a little bit. But first, let's get caught up on the latest happenings. Here are your health headlines for Tuesday, October 20th, 2020. And we begin with the continued wave of coronavirus infections as the country is now averaging close to 60,000 cases a day, numbers not seen since the summer. Caseloads are intensifying nearly across the board. Infections up 34% over the last 2 weeks, according to tracking by the New York Times. And now we are 9 months into the pandemic. And in the first 271 days, more than 8.2 million Americans have become infected, while 220,000 have died, equating to almost 34 lives lost every hour since the pandemic began in January. In other news, heart disease will still kill more people worldwide this year than anything else, even during this pandemic. Now, a new study from the European Society of Cardiology estimates that nearly 7 out of 10 deaths related to the disease could be prevented if only healthier diets were adopted. The organization saying flatly that poor diets are the top contributor to the world's #1 health assassin, with high blood pressure and high cholesterol coming in second and third, both of which can also be diet-related conditions. That 7 out of 10 number, by the way, is if no other lifestyle changes were made. Further improvements, researchers say, such as quitting smoking, could eliminate deaths even further. And finally, check this out. Move over soy. There is a new player in the mock meat game, and it is an unlikely competitor. Finnish company Gold and Green is transforming oats into a hearty meat-like meal, and one the company says is cleaner and healthier than its rivals. There's less saturated fat and nearly 3 times the fiber as Beyond Beef. The company also offers vegan replacements for meatballs, burgers, and deli meats using its patented oat-based recipe. Products are already available in Europe with plans for expansion into the US in the future. All right, pulled oats, lower in saturated fat, lower in calories, probably not a bad idea for a woman who is expecting, because a new study is showing that a baby's life expectancy can be highly dependent upon what it is that their mother eats during pregnancy. To discuss the findings and present the science, please welcome Dr. Hana Kahleova to the Exam Room Live. Dr. Kahleova, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Chuck.
All right. So researchers here were looking at far more than just fat and calories and fiber. So break down for us exactly what it is that this study found and what it was that they were looking for.
Absolutely. It's a pretty fascinating study, which has just been published in the Journal of Nutrition. And the researchers were looking at what the mother was eating and the effect on the telomere length in the baby. And let me just give you a background so that you understand what telomeres are and what the significance of the study is. So we have 23 pairs of chromosomes that where most of our genes are, and each chromosome has a cap that's called a telomere. That's the tip of the chromosome. And as we age, the telomeres get shorter and shorter with each cell division, until it comes to a point where they cannot get any shorter and they just stop dividing and the cell dies. It's like when you buy brand new shoelaces, the tips are nice and clean, but when you keep using them, all of a sudden they get shorter and shorter. The good news is that we can do something about it. First of all, the telomere length at birth gives you an idea of how long the telomeres will be for the rest of your life. So it's super important where your starting point is. The second important thing to realize is that telomere length is a biomarker of aging. It's shortened during each cell division, and it's important to realize that it can be also restored. So in other words, it cannot get only shorter and shorter during life. But if you make some lifestyle choices, if you, for example, switch to a plant-based diet, the telomeres can actually become longer again. So, and the shortened telomere length has been associated with all the chronic diseases like cardiovascular disease and cancer and diabetes and obesity and Alzheimer's disease and rheumatoid arthritis. And obviously, we want to avoid all of those conditions. We want to have our telomeres as long as possible, and we would like this for our baby that's about to be born. So the researchers in Sweden, in Karolinska Institute, were looking at 194 pregnant women. All samples were collected only from roughly 100 women. They were looking at their body weight and body mass index and fat mass before pregnancy. They were also measuring the serum vitamins and minerals. And they were looking at telomere length in placenta and cord blood. And what they found out was pretty fascinating. They found an inverse relationship between pre-pregnancy body mass index, body weight, and fat mass, and telomere length. That means the heavier the woman started off before pregnancy, and the more fat she had in her body before becoming pregnant, the shorter the telomeres were in placenta. The same relationship was also true for serum vitamin B12 levels. The higher the vitamin B12 levels, the shorter the telomeres. So pre-pregnancy body weight and vitamin B12 levels were associated inversely with telomere length. So the higher, the worse for telomere length. And on the other hand, vitamin D seemed to be protected. The higher the levels of vitamin D in serum, the better for telomere length, the longer the telomeres. That means that a healthy lifestyle before becoming pregnant is crucial. A healthy diet and an exercise routine that will help you in keeping your healthy body mass index and body weight are crucial. Also, avoiding an excess of animal products that are rich in vitamin B12 is key. And getting enough sunshine, and during winter months, supplementing with vitamin D. These are the findings from the study.
Okay, a couple of things that I want to follow up with you there on, a couple of things that jumped off the page at me. And one was that, is it possible for someone to completely repair those effects that were done if, say, a woman were to eat exclusively a fast food diet during pregnancy, or maybe she was eating the keto diet, something that it's really high in fat, high in meat content? You said that maybe telomeres can be repaired somewhat. So I'm wondering if somebody eats a super healthy diet, even if their mother did not eat the healthiest diet at all during pregnancy, is it possible to offset all of those effects?
Yeah, that's good news. It has been shown that a plant-based diet is able to increase the length of telomeres again. However, we don't have the answer how much can be done. Can we, even make the telomeres longer than for someone who has a better starting point in life? We don't know the answer to that yet. We don't have the quantities, how much can be achieved. We only know that a plant-based diet works, and we know it can lengthen our telomeres again. And we still need to, we still need more research on how much can be achieved, and if we can completely offset the pre-pregnancy and pregnancy nutrition factors.
I want to also ask you about B12. Obviously, you eat a plant-based diet, you eat a vegan diet, you're supposed to supplement with B12, but B12 here seems to be key to this study as well. What would the recommendation then be for a woman who is pregnant as far as ensuring she's getting enough B12, but not getting too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the dose that is sufficient that we need is about 100 micrograms per day. There's many supplements on the market, and most of them have higher doses. And we don't need higher doses than 100 micrograms per day. So my recommendation would be just stick to the supplement 100 micrograms per day, and don't take the supplements with high doses. The high doses have been also associated with some other problems, not only during pregnancy. So it's better to stick to just what we need, instead of having too much of it.
And all of this seems rather new to me. I can't recall off the top of my head hearing much really hard data on diets during pregnancy other than the general suggestion of eat a healthy diet for your baby. What do we know coming into this study?
Exactly. As you said, there's a few review papers that compare different dietary patterns in pregnancy. A plant-based diet seems to be definitely a good option. There's also some data that Mediterranean diet might be helpful during pregnancy. And what I would like to discourage women to do would be a keto diet during pregnancy, because there's research showing that there's a higher risk of birth defects when women are on a keto diet during pregnancy. So a plant-based diet or a Mediterranean diet seem to be working well for pregnancy.
And where does the research go from here? I still feel like we're only scratching the surface. So if you're in charge of the study, what do you do next?
Yeah, so this study was looking at the telomere length in placenta, but we don't really have the technology to look at the newborn baby or track the telomere length, in the baby that's still in utero. So that would be the next step, right? Of course, when the baby is born, we can measure the length of the telomeres. So that would be the next step, and I'll also follow the baby until adulthood and see what other factors play a role, and if we can offset the short telomere length, from early childhood, and how much we can achieve. These are the next research questions.
Dr. Hana Kahleova, I'm going to call you Dr. Fascinating because you always bring such interesting science to the show. Thank you so very much for joining us again.
Thank you so much, Chuck.
All right. We just heard Dr. Kahleova talk about, well, she really scratched the surface about the importance of eating a healthy diet before a woman gets pregnant. Well, let's continue that conversation now by welcoming lifestyle medicine expert Dr. Jasmol Sardana back to the Exam Room Live. Dr. Jas, thanks so very much for being here.
Chuck, excited to be here with you again this week.
The pleasure is all mine. This seems like it's right in your wheelhouse. You're a mom, you love lifestyle, you love healthy habits. So how important is it for a child's overall health that long before a mother conceives, she is actually in optimum health herself?
Absolutely. I think, Chuck, sometimes you bring such a good point up in that when we think about maternal health, we have such a narrowed view of what that really entails, right? We care about a woman's health when she is about to conceive, right before she's about to conceive, when she's pregnant, and during that postpartum period for about 6 weeks, and then we're fine. However, what we know is that when it comes to maternal health and when it comes to the health of the child, the health of the female, of the woman, well before she even gets pregnant, makes such a huge difference. We know that women, 1 out of 4, you had mentioned, Chuck, that heart disease continues to be the #1 killer. And that's not only for men, right? This definitely affects women. 1 out of 4 women die annually of cardiovascular disease. And the ramifications of that are multifold.
And so, do we know anything about just the overall fertility of a high-fat diet versus somebody who's eating something that skews a little bit more plant-based or is exclusively vegan? Is there any correlation there?
Yeah, so I had this. I personally didn't realize this or know this, but I just had a recent discussion with this fabulous reproductive endocrinology fellow, and she was able to share with us that the quality of the diet can potentially improve your fertility. Now, the quantity, like quantifying some of that, is very, very difficult. However, just in general, choosing things that are healthy for you when it comes to your diet, and things that improve your overall risk of chronic disease is so incredibly important when it comes to overall health and can translate into fertility. And just to also touch on, Dr. Kahleova's a study that she shared with us about how, our telomeres are affected by our diet. What we understand also about pregnancy is that the impact of a woman's diet and her health has multi-generational impacts. I remember going to a lifestyle medicine conference a couple of years ago, and there was this really powerful talk on epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is the epigenome is the portion of your DNA that does not carry the genetic code. The epigenome is the non-DNA portion of your DNA. Of your genetic makeup. And that looks like, and so essentially that portion of your DNA helps to turn certain genes on and off. And your diet makes and has a great impact on that, which is so incredibly powerful. And during that talk, what they talked about was how a mother's health, not only does it affect her health directly, but when she's pregnant, it affects the child, right? And that's a great, that's easy to understand. But Chuck, this expert speaker spoke to us about how if that child who is in the mother's womb happens to be a female, we know that the ova, right? That female babies are born with their ova, that now the grandchildren could potentially be affected. The future grandchildren who are ova in the child, in the mom, are affected. So just stepping back and realizing that the choices that we make today have multi-generational effects is so incredibly powerful for us to know. There was this, I wanted to share with you, there was this very famous study called the Dutch potato famine study of 1944. And pregnant women during that time, unfortunately, had been in a very stressful situation. We're starving. We're getting less than 500 calories a day. So they ended up delivering small for gestational age and size children, which is not surprising. When they followed those children's, throughout their lives, what they found is that they had an increased rate of obesity, the children, increased rate of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even mental health issues. So the diet of a woman should not just be, maternal health should not be just narrowed to that, those few months when she's pregnant and for the few weeks after postpartum. It is a discussion that we need to kind of really zoom out and say our health really matters well before we ever get pregnant. And it lasts and lingers those effects for generations.
All right, I gotta go back to this generational thing. This is absolutely mind blowing that we're talking about not the baby who's currently in the womb, but the baby's future baby that will be coming along some 30 years later or so. That is mind blowing to me.
Agreed.
I mean, just absolutely. You've rendered me speechless. In all honesty, that is a point I'm dead serious. Like my jaw is bung, like on the ground. Yeah. I would imagine that when you were watching that presentation, you had much the same reaction, like, holy moly. But then you think about it for a second, and obviously I'm not a doctor, but just from a layperson's perspective, I'm like, it doesn't take a whole lot to connect the dots and say, you know what? That's probably right.
No, it's so powerful. But can I tell you very honestly, Chuck, it kind of angered me a little bit. And I'll tell
Mm.
you why. It's because the choices there, so we know that women, are affected by chronic disease, but there are these health disparities. We know that if you're African American or Latina, that you suffer and you carry a disproportionate amount of chronic disease. And so when I thought about it, it really made me think about, well, the choices that a person has available to them is going to last for generations. And so how important is it that we're making sure that all of us, right, across the board, male, female, have adequate access to the right foods, and that the right healthy foods are available, because again, these impacts last for generations, and we need to pay attention to these things, because those health disparities can continue for generations if we don't make those changes today.
All right, so you are really kind of breaking a lot of ground here for us on the show today, and I'm curious. As a man, I will never know what maternal instinct is. Okay,
Sure.
that's just a fact. But I do know that women, by and large, are fiercely protective of their children. Love them. I mean, that is just what the deal is. And I wonder if a woman is armed with this knowledge, knowing that what she's eating today not only affects the child whom she's carrying right now, but also her future grandchildren. Do you think then that that would influence the choices that she's making?
Oh, 100%. But again, Chuck, the all of the decision doesn't only fall on her, right? It's not only going to land on her. It does land on you. It does land on the partners. It does land on the men in our society. It lands on our, for layers from government down to the person directly making that choice. And so I want to be clear that yes, this choice should be made. These are the healthy decisions and choices that a woman must make, but the environment has to be conducive for her to be allowed to have those choices available.
All right. Now, let's say that we are able to take the steps and a lot of the systemic issues that really have
Mhm.
minorities disproportionately affected by these chronic diseases.
Right.
Let's say that there is a level playing field 20, 30, 50 years from now in the future. Let's say that
Mhm.
we achieve that goal. And then let's go back to epigenetics. Let's say
Yeah.
that there are twin sisters. Okay. One of them eats a healthy, we'll just say plant-based diet for
Mhm.
this show. And then the other one is at Burger King every day. Okay. Fueling up
Right.
on fast food. What then do you think just in your opinion here, we're not saying fact, but just in your opinion, what effect would be on their children and then their children's children down the line? Which one would have the healthier lineage, do you think? Just to put
Oh
a
my
pinpoint.
gosh. Absolutely the one who's eating a whole food plant-based diet, 100% for so many reasons. And again, the health of the, mom before she gets pregnant is so important. And certainly we know, so for one key important piece is weight gain in pregnancy. That's a big piece, right? So, and that's intimately and directly tied to what you're eating. So if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, other studies along with the large Adventist health study tells us that those who are vegan, who chose a plant-based diet, had the most optimal BMI, and those who didn't had higher BMIs. And that translates to individuals who are pregnant. And when it comes to weight gain, if you're gaining a lot of weight prior to pregnancy, you're now more at risk for developing complications during pregnancy, like gestational diabetes, gestational hypertension. You're more at risk of potentially having a C-section. And that gestational diabetes can lead to you having a larger child, can lead to birth trauma, and could lead to potential complications for the child themselves. So yes, generationally, there's that effect. There's also those direct effects. So it's just all layers of impact that your diet can make.
All right. And last thing here, if let's pretend that you have a patient coming in, she's expecting, what are some of the top foods that you would say for her to eat, and which are the ones that she should definitely be avoiding? I think that our viewers may want a few specifics here if you're able to provide them.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I do want to be clear, I'm not an OB-GYN, so I can't tell you the specifics for sure, but as a lifestyle medicine physician, as someone who's a whole food plant-based diet, I will tell you, number one, fiber, right? You are making sure that you're getting a high fiber diet, which comes from whole foods and plants. You're not going to get that from animal products. You're not going to get that from dairy. You're not going to get that from cheese. Including a high fiber diet will help you stay at an optimal weight and will help you gain the appropriate amount of weight during your pregnancy, and not in excess. Additionally, there might be some other complications associated with pregnancy, constipation, et cetera, that worsen during pregnancy that would be really helped by being on a whole food plant-based diet. Next, just avoiding meat, avoiding dairy products in general. Saturated fat, additionally puts you at risk of chronic diseases. We also know that when you're eating a diet, studies have shown that women who eat a diet that's high in meat consumption, low carb, high protein diets that have high fat, you're more at risk of developing gestational hypertension, which can potentially progress into something called preeclampsia, which is a complication of pregnancy and can result in preterm labor, which is obviously dangerous as well. So specifically fiber, whole food plant-based, like making sure you're getting your leafy greens. Polyphenols are the part of the of fruits and vegetables that are so incredibly important when it comes to promoting resilience against stress as well, which when you become pregnant, that's a new added stressor for you. So dark green leafy vegetables, dark berries, choosing whole grains, and building meals every single day. You've heard me say this before, Chuck, that are a rainbow, and that you're building it with a bean, a green, and a grain, and making sure you're getting your rainbow in daily.
All right, so here's the key takeaway: fiber now and fiber for your family's future.
Yes.
that to me appears to be the thing. And here's the thing. I mean, this is your jam. And just to wrap up this conversation as well, we're talking about establishing healthy eating habits long before pregnancy even here. But, it's not too late to change, even if the child has already been born, because what a mother is eating today certainly also influences what their child is taking with them to school in their lunch sack every day as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, there seems to, it's just the truth of the matter in our society. Women and moms, carry that increased burden of thinking about the nutrition of the entire family. My hope is going forward that more of partners, if you're partnered, and other family members are also helping to share in that. But for right now, we do know that moms dictate what's on the kitchen table, what's on your plate. And your children, as they grow up, will remember that. And those habits that you create today will last for a lifetime. And if you set them up for success today by number one, focusing on your own health, because being an example is number one, the most important thing. And then number two, sharing that conversation with your children and offering those good, healthy things today will again carry those great habits for a lifetime for them.
All right, Dr. Jazz, this is your jam, because you've also gone so far as to create a program called Planted, which empowers mothers to prioritize their health so that they then can take better care of their own families. Put yourself first, and then everything else kind of falls in line after that. The program is phenomenal. It runs Mondays through November 23rd. What all have you guys been discussing?
So the last couple of weeks, we actually talked about self-care, which is this like almost bad word sometimes when we think about it, because how can we do self-care? It feels so selfish. So we were able to talk about self-care. We were able to talk about a whole food plant-based diet, and just got into the nitty-gritty of that and how to actually start making these choices with a family, with children who are developing palates and maybe are starting to have their own opinions about what they want to eat and what they don't. And we also touched on a whole food plant-based diet, and it's linked to physical activity. Next week, we're going to talk about the barriers to going plant-based and specific barriers that families and moms face when it comes to choosing this way of choosing this lifestyle for their families.
I love it. I love it. So go, you see that web address, if we can put that up on the screen one more time. There it is, pcrm.org/events/planted. It runs Mondays through November 23rd. Last bit of business here, Dr. Jess. Let's go ahead and open up that doctor's mailbag. You're going to prescribe an answer here to a question that comes to us from Joanna. And she writes, I have low iron levels and my family wants me to eat meat so I can get better numbers. Do you recommend taking a supplement?
Okay, yeah, that is a loaded question because you can have low iron levels for lots of reasons, right? You can either have low iron levels because you're not building enough, you don't have enough iron, or because you're losing a lot of iron from potentially blood loss. And so if you have low iron levels, number one, please make an appointment to see your doctor and discuss where that could be coming from. And then depending on what the level of your iron level is, and maybe some further testing to confirm that it is a supplement would be necessary, that's when you should take the supplement. So number one, see your physician and talk to them about kind of addressing why that iron level is low to begin with. You know, we can't just take a level at face value. We have to figure out why that's happening. Either you're not getting enough or you're losing it. So once you sort that out, I think the question of whether or not you need to take a supplement will become clearer.
Let me tell you, I had low iron at one point, and
Okay.
it was dangerously low. My hemoglobin was like a 4 or 5, something like that, and I could barely stand up. It was kind of scary. Landed me in the hospital, but it turns out had really nothing to do with diet. I had a bleeding
Right.
ulcer. I was already plant-based at that time. I just had way too much going on in my life. You know, I was
Exactly.
in school. I was working 3 jobs. They were being bounced around. The shifts were all over the place,
Oh my
kind of
gosh.
trying to start my own business. And, you know, it was too much. It was too much. And I don't care what it is that you're eating. You as a doctor, back me
Yeah.
up here. I don't care what it is that you're eating. If
Yep.
you are that stressed out, if you have that much going on, if you're getting next to no sleep, that's always going to be a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, Chuck, I'm so sorry that you dealt with that, but we're so happy that you're here with us today.
Oh, me too. I've learned a lot about iron and healthy diets and healthy lifestyles since then. So I'm glad that I am as well. But Dr. Jazz, I appreciate you being here with us today
Absolutely.
as well and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Chuck. This was such a great conversation. Thank you.
All right, we'll do it again very soon. If we didn't get to your question today, have no fear. We will save it and try to get you an answer on an upcoming episode. So keep on posting that in the comments section, or you can always tweet them to us using the hashtag ExamRoomLive. And don't forget, you can also schedule an appointment to meet with Dr. Jazz over at the Barnard Medical Center. Telemedicine visits, easy for me to say, are available in more than a quarter of the country now. So visit barnardmedical.org or call 202-527-7500 to schedule an appointment with Dr. Jazz or any one of the plant-based doctors and dietitians that can get you going on a healthier path today. barnardmedical.org, 202-527-7500. And finally, today, I also want to say thank you to Old Ways for their support of our Let's Beat Breast Cancer campaign this month, showing how you can lower your risk of getting a disease that will affect so many women during their lifetime. And we show how to do this with 4 simple steps. You see that right on the screen right now. So head over to letsbeatbreastcancer.org to learn them in depth, get some more science behind it, and then also pledge to follow those 4 steps and register to win a great prize pack from our phenomenal Let's Beat Breast Cancer sponsors. And you can also receive a free e-cookbook while you're there as well. So once again, thank you very much to Old Ways and everyone who has supported Let's Beat Breast Cancer for us this year. All right, coming up on the show tomorrow, this is a good one. YouTube star and weight loss success, Brittany Giroudi. She will be here to share how she lost 70 pounds by going vegan. And hopefully she's going to share some super delicious, yummy, yummy recipes with us as well. If you get a chance to go through her Instagram ahead of time, you're going to see some stuff that's going to make your mouth water. So this is just a great story. She cooks healthy. She cooks delicious. She's lost 70 pounds. She's now vegan. This is phenomenal. Can't wait to have Brittany on the show with us tomorrow. So that is at noon Eastern back here on Facebook and on YouTube. Today, that's about all the time that we have. I want to say really quickly, happy 40th birthday to my brother, Richard. I also want to say thank you to the crew behind the scenes that makes the magic happen. Thank you guys for putting the show on. And thank you for watching right now, my exam roomie. We do the show for you. On behalf of Dr. Hana Kahleova and Dr. Jasmol Sardana and everyone here at the Physicians Committee, I am the weight loss champion, Chuck Carroll. Thanks so much for tuning in. And until tomorrow, stay safe, take a stand, and keep it plant-based.